Hello! In this tutorial I'm going to show you a way to do a weapon trace using a technique called tick substepping. Now keep in mind this isn't the tutorial, this is me showing you what I will be showing you in the tutorial. But I still believe it is important to watch this video as it will help you better understand the system you are making, and it will help you better understand programmatic thinking. And by understanding that, you'll in turn improve your own ability to use Unreal Engine or just programming and game design in general. So let's begin. There's a couple things you will need beforehand. First is obviously a weapon as a skeletal or static mesh. It doesn't matter which one of those you pick, you can even mix and match, I think, because we'll be converting it to a scene component and then getting certain variables from it. And this part is optional, but you can add visual trails. This is a stylistic choice, what they look like doesn't matter. But I recommend this tutorial by Amber Scott. He uses a Niagara timed effect notify, which you can adapt to include the logic that I'll be covering in the tutorial. So then, let's talk about the sockets. Sockets are added to the mesh, be that a skeletal or static mesh. And there is a start socket near the guard, or near just above the hand, and an end socket just above the tip of the sword. And these define the starting and ending points of our blade. Now then, what I've seen most tutorials do is they will ask you to make a trace from the start point to the end point each frame. But as you can see, this leaves a gap in between the frames. So even if you were point blank in front of the enemy, depending on your frame rate, you might actually miss. It's like playing Morrowind, except your skill is tied to the FPS. This is where tick substepping comes in. Tick substepping will store the previous frame, then draw from the previous to the current frame. And as you can see, this solves the gap in between the two sockets. However, this still leaves a gap in the center. So, in order to fix that, there's a couple different ways you could do it. The first way you could do it is with a box trace. The box trace fixes the gaps, but as you can see, this leaves some very awkward bounds for the mesh. Now, I'll admit this is a bit of an exaggerated view. This bound could have been a parallelogram. However, the box trace is of course just 8 vertices, so you can't really bend it in any way. Another thing is that it has no sweet spot. Now, I'll get into later what I mean by that exactly. But basically, it means that if you hit something with the tip of your sword, or more accurately, if it was a spear or an axe, you would do more damage than you would with the haft, with the lower end. So, that's not exactly something you can do with just box traces. So instead, we will be adding extra trace points in between the start and end sockets. So we can calculate the locations of a variable amount of extra points and then set those for both the previous and the current frame to then draw in between them. And this is what that will look like. You will have no more gaps as long as you have the proper combination of radius and number of points for the length of your sword. And you can set this number of points yourself to whatever amount you would want. And with this knowledge, you can add percentage-based sweet spot logic. Now, as I said, I would get into sweet spots later, and it's officially later o'clock. So, sweet spots, what I mean by this is you input a percentage and you output certain points and their sphere traces. So you can see in the graph on the right, the green part is basically the sweet spot. You will deal more damage in the top 30% of the blade. And in the middle, you can see the blue part is just a regular attack, basically. And in the bottom bit, the red part, is the bottom 30% of the blade, which will bounce off of a wall, which is definitely a very fun mechanic that every game should have. And these are just some of the examples of the things you could do with this sweet spot thing. Now, one of the advantages of a scalable number of trace points is that you are able to set the sweet spots to a percentage, and no matter the number of trace points, your sweet spots will always be at the same percentage. So then, this will be a somewhat more intermediary tutorial than what I would usually cover. In order to keep it short and to the point, I will not cover a certain number of things. I won't cover ways to attach a weapon to your character, sockets, weapon bones, that sort of thing. I will not I won't cover how to obtain variables from other blueprints using casting, interfaces, or components. These aren't necessarily the most complicated things to get the hang of, so if you don't know them yet, look something up or just ask me in the comments and I will do my best to help. And I will not cover how to apply damage with your attacks. This is mostly because this varies incredibly from game to game. It totally depends on your game, so I won't be covering it. I will tell you when you can do it, obviously, but not how. That'll do it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments, and I will do my best to help. Anyway, that'll be all from me for today, and good luck.